Thank you all for joining us today for the evidence-based strategies for self-care during COVID-19. I am Terrence Foley, President and CEO of the City Avenue Special Services District. The district unites businesses, property owners, developers, and residents in a common goal of making City Ave a great place to live, work, play, and learn. I want to give special thanks to Lisa Pote, Executive Director, and her team at the Beck Institute for Cognitive Behavior Therapy for reaching out to us with a partnership for this event. The district typically hosts lunch and learn events that take place at various locations in the district. We love that we can still deliver events to the community virtually and hope to plan more very soon. Upcoming events can be found on our website, cityav.org. Self-care is something that should be taken seriously, especially during this time. Please join me in virtually welcoming Dr. Francine, clinical psychologist at the Beck Institute for Cognitive Behavior Therapy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the welcome. How cool is this that we can be together? And thank you to all of you out there sharing your lunch with me. I want to start by telling you a little bit about the Beck Institute. Dr. Aaron Beck developed cognitive behavior therapy at the University of Pennsylvania in the 1960s. And then in 1994, Dr. Beck and his daughter, Dr. Judith Beck, established the Beck Institute. The Beck Institute is a leading international source for training, therapy, and resources in cognitive behavior therapy. Our mission statement reads, we improve lives worldwide through excellence in cognitive behavior therapy. And I include this is a picture of Dr. Beck and Dr. Aaron Beck, and his quote not only embodies the cognitive model, but is so apropos today. And I'll read it to you. It's not the situations in our lives that cause distress, but rather our interpretations of those situations. And so I want to go back to Dr. Beck's quote for a moment, because you may have already noticed in your own life that on the days that you wake up and think, this is so terrible, I don't know how I'm going to get through it, and I can't stand the uncertainty, your anxiety and mood may be different than when you think, this is unbelievably challenging, difficult, and the uncertainty is so great, but I'm going to figure out what I can do today to make my day at least a little bit better. So as you can see, the situation's the same, but the way you think about it may be slightly different. And so we need self-care every day, of course, but it's incredibly important today. There's so many changes we're all dealing with that are not our choice, and we had little or no time to prepare for the changes. One of my clients recently said, so much has been taken away from us, so there's a sense of loss as well. Some of the loss includes our rituals, at least in the ways we knew them to be. I mean, think about it. The ways we're celebrating birthdays, weddings, even funerals are very, very different right now. And we're all living with increased uncertainty, which for so many of us is difficult. So what is self-care? Well, it's more than scented candles and bubble baths. It's something much more important and deeper. It's about taking care of yourself. It's about your mental health and taking care of yourself. And I want you to know that if you're still trying to figure it out, that's okay. It's a matter of trial and error for most of us. It's certainly not one size fits all. I mean, you think about how much sleep you need to feel your best. It's very different from other people you know. And sleep is just one piece of self-care. So my hope is that you come out of this brief lunch and learn with some ideas to look into or try to help you feel your best during this time. So some general suggestions for self-care that I've been collecting for the past 6-7 weeks includes change out of your pajamas. I mean, while here we are on this screen, Um, Obviously, you can't see the bottom half of me, and I've had some colleagues joke that um, when we first started to all work from home, they literally didn't need to change out of their pajamas, at least from their waist down. But if you've tried this, you know that it could lead to a mood that's not so good. And so one of the things I've been talking with my clients about is, at the very least, get a shower, get out of your pajamas, have some breakfast, and start your day the way you always have. There's so much literature on the importance of movement. Um, Terrence mentioned Lisa Pote, our executive director. Lisa sends emails to the entire office, words of greetings, encouragement, gratitude, and she always includes, get out of your chairs, make sure you move. And it's important now more than ever, as we're in our homes and not able to do as much as we were before. You also want to remember to give yourself a dose of outdoor time. Now, of course, this doesn't mean uh, doing anything the Centers for Disease Control suggests we don't do, but I'm reminded of Oliver Sacks, the late neurologist and author, who talked about when he was with his meet with patients in his office, he would, whenever he could, walk outdoors with his patients. And because he was based, I'm pretty sure, in a New York City hospital, he would find some gardens to take his patients to. He thought that was a real boost in well-being. You've heard this, I'm sure. This is not a fresh idea, to make meaningful connections with family and friends. And there's so many ways that we're all figuring out how to do this now. I have to share that I had a birthday recently, and like many of us with birthdays recently, we had a Zoom party. And one of my friends, who likes to look fashionable, actually wore a dress for this Zoom birthday party. It was very sweet of her and touching. I mention Limit the News because I found in my own day-to-day life in the past few weeks that when I do more than stay informed about what's happening and what's recommended, my anxiety goes up. And I'm sharing this with you because perhaps you've noticed the same. And I include Keep Your Space Nice. I'm smiling because I listened to an interview of an astronaut who spent about a year in a space station. And he described how tiny his space was. And he learned pretty quickly that if he didn't keep his little space nice, his mood would go south. And I think this is true for this particular time. We're home. And so this is a perfectly good time to at least experiment with keeping your space a little nicer than you may have, a little neater. So the question is, or a couple questions I have, when you imagine that we're, I don't know, it's 6 months from now, it's a year from now, when you look back on this time in your life, what do you want it to say about you? And when you look back on this, when you're in the future time, what do you want to be doing differently than you're doing now? So one of the ways to develop self-care habits that matter is to think about what matters to you instead of what makes you anxious. Well, let me reframe that. If you notice that you're feeling anxious, and I think most of us are these days, whether it's mild, moderate, or severe, when you notice that you're feeling anxious, you can think about what matters to you and then see this time as an opportunity of sorts. So if you think back to the way you were living before the pandemic showed up and we all needed to make big changes in our day-to-day life, I don't think most of us took the time to think about what truly drove our sense of satisfaction. And this is the time to do it. So, what kind of life would you like to have when all of this is done? Well, the main takeaway of our lunch and learn is um, if you think about linking what you do more of and less of to your values, to your deeply held values and aspirations, you're going to be doing so much good for yourself. And I'm calling that self care. So, what if you linked your choices to what you value? And what if we linked our choices to our aspirations? So, for example, do you value a strong spiritual life? I've come to discover that houses of worship, churches, synagogues, and the like are live streaming their services. I know that the house of worship that we belong to sends an email every week with their schedule, just like they used to do, but now it's either Zoom or live stream service. And I have to say that when I attended recently the bar mitzvah of a friend's grandson, of course, this bar mitzvah was not what the family had planned. It's an important life event, and of course, they wanted to be surrounded by their loved ones. But the next best thing is that we all got to be there in some sense for them, and we got to watch it from start to finish. So I share this with you in case you weren't certain this was happening. It's happening. Do you value being of service? There are so many opportunities to be of service these days. And the first couple I've listed are new to me, so I'm thinking they may be new to you. DirectRelief.org is an organization that raises money for our frontline workers. So important. The Pandemic of Love. This is a really cool organization that pairs people who have something to give with people who have needs. So, for example, suppose you have an extra $10 a week. You could be paired with someone who could use $10 a week. And the Pandemic of Love a byline reads like this: love is the virus, love is infectious, love is the cure. So cool. I included PETA because it's near and dear to my heart. People for the ethical treatment of animals. They're always fundraising, of course, but these days when so many people have so little, it makes perfect sense that the pets are at risk for getting even less. Interfaith Caregivers is a community-based organization that supports seniors who are living independently but need help. And the help before the coronavirus showed up included visits, driving seniors to appointments, which are two things that are not happening right now. But Interfaith Caregivers is still looking for volunteers to drop off a note or a couple groceries on someone's doorstep. And I'm just checking my time. Okay, we're good. So if you value fitness and that sense of well-being that fitness gives you, and like me, because you're not commuting to the office, you have a little more time in your schedule. Well, this is the time to think about ways that you could serve that value. I mentioned Peloton and Orange Theory here because these are two fitness organizations that are offering free online classes, and I would urge anyone who's interested to look into that. You may already know that there are many yoga studios and organizations all over the world that are offering either free or very low fee classes. And if that's something that maybe your jam, something to look into. A couple of my women friends and I are joking that our homes have never been tidier. Well, if if you value organizing your space and making it more tidy and don't know where to start and maybe haven't started for years because it's too overwhelming, I highly recommend the book by Marie Kondo, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. If you prefer to watch versus read, she has a Netflix series that's also very good. And if you value digging down deep to figure out what you're made of, well, this may be the time to plan a future challenge or even figure out where you could, in keeping with social distance, do a hike. Yes, this is the back of my head looking down after I had hiked up a mountain and was scared, but very proud of myself. So I thought I would share this picture with all of you. And maybe you value nurturing. Maybe you're a nurturer, but haven't figured out a way to do more of that. Well, the New York Times recently ran a pretty comprehensive article on how to become an indoor plant parent. And as you can see, I'm an indoor plant parent, but I still learned a good deal from this article. So I shared the link. And maybe you value new ways to connect with people. I personally haven't played checkers since I was 10 years old, but if you have, let's say, nieces and nephews who you're not able to connect with in person, there's actually a way you could play virtual checkers with them. So I thought I would share that link with you as well. Many years ago, when I was becoming a parent and reading about becoming a parent, I remember reading something like children learn from observing what we do more than what we tell them what to do. And so it would be important to behave in ways that we wanted them to emulate and do more of that. And so I thought I would share this with you now, that if you behave in ways that reflect what you value and do more of that, well, that's an important way to take care of yourself right now. This is one of my favorite all-time quotes that I'm sharing with you. It's one of the ways that I take care of myself, and to remind myself whenever I start something difficult is that the miracle isn't that I finish it, but it's that I had the courage to start. And this is a quote by John Bingham, and he's the author of the book Marathoning for Mortals. When he first came on the scene, he had a column in Runner's World years ago called The Penguin. He would talk about the pleasures of running slowly. Anyway, look him up. And one of the last things I want to talk about as a way to take care of yourself is to teach yourself to notice the positive, as Dr. Judy Beck talked about recently in the fireside chat she participated in with Dr. Aaron Beck and Dr. Martin Seligman, is that we're likely wired to notice the negative, possibly because it has a protective value. But it's important now more than ever to teach ourselves to notice the positive. And one of the positives that came out of this time of staying home is I have a window right near the coffee maker in the kitchen, and I noticed that a bird was spending a lot of time in the tree right outside the kitchen window. And I went out there, and lo and behold, I noticed these beautiful eggs in this gorgeous nest. And if you notice, there's this bird mother even put leaves under the eggs. So I think this bird mother gets Mother of the Year award. And then let's see, I have a couple minutes left, thankfully. I've had colleagues and friends come up with some social distancing questions we can all be asking ourselves right now for in terms of well-being and self-care. And here they are. What beauty am I either creating or noticing today? Who am I checking in with or connecting with today? And what am I grateful for today? I wanted to include this quote by Cicero: gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all the others. And can you imagine that in this time that is unbelievably difficult and challenging, feeling thankful for what you learned? Well, I'm thankful for my family and friends and my colleagues, and a shout out to my colleagues. I truly have the best colleagues in the world at the Beck Institute, and I thank them for all their constant support and everything I learn from them every day. And I love this picture, so I thought I would share it with you. And I want to thank the City Avenue District again for the opportunity to partner on this webinar. What a cool opportunity. So now I open it up to some questions that you may have.
We had one question come in asking if we could further explain what we mean by aspirations.
Yeah, so let's see. How are they different from values? I think that aspirations has to do with the future of what we want for ourselves and what has meaning for us. So if we have a sense of what we aspire to, that can inform what we do in our day-to-day.
Great. And we also had another question come in asking if you have a good book recommendation on gratitude.
Oh, what a great question. Such a great question. So if it's okay with the person that asked the question, and actually, Rachel, you and I talked about this, how about I give it some thought, and in a follow-up email, we'll send a suggestion or two.
Perfect. And another question is asking if you have any specific thoughts about how to bring these principles to children, like movement, getting outside, all the things you talked about.
Yeah, so I don't know how old the children are that the person with the question has in mind, but children will in great part do what we do. And so is this something that you can, is this something that you can do more of? Is this something that if, for example, if getting outside is something you want for the children, is there something that you can do with them? Is it something that you can set up that would be fun for you too?
Great. Someone asked if we can address motivation towards self-discipline.
Yeah. So I don't love the word motivation because when my clients bring it up, they often talk about feeling bad about themselves because they don't have motivation. And what we talk about in the office is not to wait for motivation to show up, but so often when you start doing something, even something that you don't feel like doing, but you hold it up as being important, motivation might come from that.
What suggestions do you have for managing the anxiety that many are feeling during this time?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And so, so much anxiety comes from uncertainty and the difficulty in managing uncertainty. And I shared one approach, which is to limit the news that you're watching. But something else that is very helpful in managing anxiety is to focus on what you do have control over, what you can do in any given moment. And I'm not opposed to sharing that my own anxiety, like all day long, so lucky to be busy and feel useful because I still get to work during this time. So my own anxiety doesn't show up until it's at night or I'm just putting my head on the pillow. And I find what's very helpful, and I share this with my clients, is to then notice the anxiety and also remind myself I don't have to do anything with it. Just let it be there. And then I find it very helpful to think about what I am in control over. And I think, okay, I'm feeling this anxiety, but when I wake up in the morning, I can make coffee. I can give my cat her fresh water, her food, her medicine. I can have breakfast. I can do my workout. I can check my email. I can check in with my colleagues and friends. And that's super helpful to remind oneself of what one can do versus what we can't do.
Another question came in about how we can help our adult children who are in college and graduating during this time.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Oh my goodness. Isn't it hard for our adult children who have their lives turned upside down? Well, there's going to be, we're all going to get past this. We don't exactly know what it's going to look like, but we're going to get there. And so for starters, let's help them keep hope alive. And let's help them remember that there are still things that they can do. Do they value being productive? Maybe this is the time to figure out, to set up internships and being mentored by people for when they can be out in person. Maybe there's some virtual learning they can do. Maybe there's some virtual steps they can take in their lives right now that'll feel good for them. So they may feel as though there's nothing that they can do, but with some creativity and support from us, that's not 100% accurate.
Awesome. And we have a question that says, what about self-reassuring that if something is not perfect, it's okay given the current conditions?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that. For me, one of the blessings of this time is the absence of having to be perfect. And not to disclose too much, but that's a thing. And so it's been really, for me, and so it's been really freeing. There's no such thing as perfect right now. Dr. Alan Miller, the director of CBT training, and one of my colleagues at the Beck Institute, has shared publicly, so I'm not speaking out of turn, that when he gives a seminar or webinar, the only thing he worries about is the technology. He's got all the other knowledge right here, but it's the technology. And what's so beautiful about this time is we can only do as well as we can do. That things, that things don't necessarily need to be perfect right now. We all understand and we're all in this together. So perfect can really be put aside as we're in this time. It's so freeing.
Great. And we have another question. If you have any recommendations for elderly beloved ones for getting through this sad sense of loneliness.
Oh gosh, yes. Yes. Okay, so with elderly loved ones, for example, I'm fortunate that my 85-year-old father is facile with his computer, and so I can send him pictures of his great grandson. But my mother, who lives with my father, isn't. So she's at the mercy of him showing what shows up on his computer. And so I think when it comes to our elderly loved ones, we just have to be creative. When the weather's nice and you can sit outdoors with social distance, that may be okay to do. Cards, letters, phone calls. It could be helpful to have a phone call scheduled at a certain time every week, so our elderly loved ones have something to look forward to. I have some elderly clients who you can imagine how lonely they are right now. I helped one of my clients literally list everyone that she could call that she hadn't already thought of, and so yeah, great question.
Great. And it looks like that is our time for today. As Dr. Berger mentioned before, we'll do our best to answer any unanswered questions through a follow-up email. So be on the lookout for that, and we can share any additional resources that Dr. Berger might also think is helpful.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate this time with you.